Nancy Walker, often overlooked, pushed her cleaning cart through the grand doors of Titan Industries, dressed in a faded red shirt that had seen better days. No one looked at her twice. She was invisible to the managers in their polished suits, rushing past her to important meetings. For years, Nancy had cleaned these halls, from the lavish boardrooms to the storage rooms filled with forgotten items. She observed everything: the scorn, the arrogance, the jokes behind closed doors, but no one noticed her. This Tuesday seemed like any other as Nancy entered the top-floor boardroom to prepare it before a critical meeting. Greg Summers, a senior manager known for his arrogance, walked in, sneering at her. "Make sure you don't leave any smudges, Nancy. Some of us have important things to do." His colleagues laughed along, dismissing her as just another cleaning lady. What they didn't realize was that Nancy had quietly watched and listened, every day storing their words and their disdain. Though they belittled her, Nancy was far more than they imagined. Soon they would learn the truth: the woman in the faded red shirt held more power than anyone knew. Nancy continued her work silently, her calm demeanor masking years of resilience. She had grown used to people like Greg, managers who saw themselves as the center of everything, never realizing how much she observed. Another senior manager, David Harris, notorious for his condescending attitude, strolled by, tossing out a dismissive remark: "Make sure there are no streaks. We've got important people coming." Nancy merely nodded, maintaining her steady composure. She knew how people like David treated others, belittling those they deemed unimportant. But what David and his colleagues didn't realize was that Nancy had been witnessing everything, every decision, every whispered conversation that would soon unravel. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was patience. Nancy had a plan, and her moment was coming. In a rare show of respect, a new employee named Emma Brown noticed Nancy's presence amid the boardroom's bustling activity. Unlike the others, Emma observed how Nancy moved through the building, taking in every small detail with an unusual calm. She could tell there was something different about Nancy. When Emma watched Greg and David mock her, she couldn't understand why they were so cruel. There was an unspoken strength about Nancy, and Emma sensed that this woman had far more significance than anyone realized. That afternoon, the atmosphere at Titan Industries grew tense as everyone prepared for the annual review with Robert Mason, the formidable CEO of the company. The stakes were high. Managers like David Harris scrambled to perfect their reports, adjusting thick stacks of documents and charts. Nancy, still in her faded red shirt, quietly tidied the boardroom for the big meeting, her presence barely acknowledged by anyone. When Mason entered, all eyes turned to him, the room falling silent under the weight of his authority. But as he scanned the room, his gaze unexpectedly landed on Nancy. To everyone's shock, he smiled warmly and addressed her directly. "Nancy, I think it's time, isn't it?" The room froze. Confusion and murmurs spread among the senior directors as they struggled to comprehend why their powerful CEO was addressing the cleaning woman they'd always ignored. David, who had only hours before sneered at her, sat tense, his face paling with realization. Slowly, Nancy set down her cleaning rag, lifting her head with a newfound confidence as she walked to the center of the room. Robert Mason then made a stunning announcement: "I'd like to introduce you all to Titan Industries' main shareholder, Nancy Walker." A stunned silence filled the room. The senior directors, who had previously brushed Nancy aside as insignificant, now sat wide-eyed, whispers of shock rippling through the room. David Harris, who had mocked her just that morning, was paralyzed, his face drained of color. The woman they had belittled was, in fact, the one with the most power. Nancy looked around the room, her eyes sharp and resolute. "For years, I've watched how you've run this company," she began. "You thought I was just a cleaner, but I've seen everything from how you treat employees to the choices you make behind closed doors. You've created a culture of arrogance and disrespect. But today, that changes." Each word landed heavily, and even the most confident director sat quietly, absorbing her message. Emma Brown, standing at the back, felt her heart race as she witnessed Nancy's transformation. This was the moment Nancy had been waiting for, the moment she would finally make things right at Titan Industries. Turning toward David Harris, Nancy's voice grew colder. "David, you're fired, effective immediately." The room erupted in murmurs of disbelief as David sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Everything he'd built, his reputation, his career, his authority, crumbled in an instant. His colleagues, the same ones who had laughed alongside him, now stared with mixed emotions of shock and satisfaction, some even relieved to see him finally held accountable. Nancy continued, her voice unwavering. "This isn't just a lesson for David, but a warning for everyone here. The culture at Titan Industries will change. Arrogance, belittling others, and abusing power have no place in this company anymore. We will become a place where every employee is respected and valued." The directors exchanged uneasy glances, fully aware that the days of unchecked power were over. Nancy's declaration echoed like a final verdict, and it was clear that Titan Industries would never be the same. In the back of the room, Emma felt a surge of admiration for Nancy, recognizing the profound transformation that was unfolding before her eyes. Nancy's gaze swept across the room, landing on Greg Summers, another senior manager known for his ruthless climb up the corporate ladder. Greg had witnessed David's fall with a mix of anxiety and disbelief. Now, as Nancy approached him, his hands trembled slightly, but he tried to mask his fear with a calm expression. "Greg," Nancy said, her voice steady and powerful, "you're no different. You've disrespected your subordinates, contributed to a toxic work environment, and acted as if your authority was beyond question." Greg tried to stammer a defense, but Nancy cut him off. "Your time here is over. You're fired, effective immediately." The directors in the room sat stunned, their former confidence crumbling under Nancy's sweeping reforms. They had underestimated the woman they'd dismissed as invisible, and now they faced the consequences of that mistake. The atmosphere was heavy, each person realizing that Nancy's words weren't empty threats. Change was happening, and they either had to adapt or leave. Nancy turned to face the remaining directors, her gaze filled with resolve. "This isn't about tearing anyone down. It's about building a company where respect and collaboration are foundational values," she announced, her voice ringing with determination. "If you can't adapt to that, there will be no place for you here." The directors sat in tense silence, absorbing the weight of her words. For years they'd operated with a sense of entitlement, but now the very fabric of their power was unraveling before them. Emma, still standing at the back, felt her admiration for Nancy deepen, witnessing a true revolution unfold. Nancy wasn't just addressing wrongdoers, she was transforming the very heart of Titan Industries. Nancy's eyes softened as she addressed Robert Mason, the CEO who had quietly supported her all along. "Robert believed in me when no one else did," she said, her tone warm with gratitude. "Together, we'll lead this company with integrity and respect." Robert nodded, a proud smile showing his endorsement. The room's once rigid atmosphere shifted, a sense of renewed purpose settling over everyone present. Nancy took a deep breath, her eyes meeting each director's as she delivered her final message. "This company will no longer be driven solely by profits at the expense of its people. From today onward, Titan Industries will be a place where every employee from the janitor to the CEO is valued and respected. If you choose to stay, understand that this is a new Titan. If you cannot adapt, you are free to leave." She turned toward the door, a quiet confidence radiating from her. Emma, inspired by the courage she'd witnessed, hurried to catch up with Nancy in the hallway. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice filled with admiration. Nancy looked at her with a warm smile. "Remember, Emma, never let anyone define your worth. That's something only you can determine." As Nancy and Emma walked out of the building together, they left behind a transformed Titan Industries. The values Nancy championed, respect, integrity, and unity, would now guide the company forward. She hadn't just changed her own life, she had redefined what power meant within those walls.